so I'll be the one who will present for group 4. Maybe I can skip this one because it's the background. This is our assumptions, or maybe our thoughts, that the facility is licensed. The end state will be the full termination of the operation of company. We plan to remediate the facility and reuse the building, but the building or the whole facility will be under the regulatory control still. We have to take in consideration the multidimensional approach, so we had scientific, economic, social, and sustainability on long-term environmental and social economic viability. As stakeholders, we identify the local residents, the employees, government officials, and the environmental group. Also, we have to establish transparent communication channels and maybe conduct surveys to gather community concerns and suggestions, and to organize town hall meetings and focus groups. We will have to have an environmental impact assessment, economic and social impact assessment. This is our conceptual site model. It's not the best one, but at least I tried. So it includes groundwater contamination, surface water, biota contamination, soil and sediment, to human exposure, and we have inhalation, ingestion, and also external exposure. Our remediation scenarios are to continue operation with enhanced safety and partial remediation. Also, enhanced remediation with gradual reduction in operation, or full remediation and completed decommissioning. Here, I realized that we have only a summary of the ranking of the criteria, so we choose the containment for the best option for the remediation technologies, because it prevents exposure, control of spread, and of course there are lower costs. After that, immobilization, and the last one was source removal, because of the higher costs, logical challenges, and maybe a risk of secondary contamination. We also did some work regarding the economic and social impact assessment. We thought about the job market effects, the community services and infrastructure impacts, the ecosystem services, maybe potential for economic diversification, public perception and trust, and to reduce health risk. Okay, so we have to have clear decision-making process and milestones, funding, of course, and resources allocation, and regulatory compliance and transparent reporting. This wasn't my slide, but for long-term monitoring, I think we chose ongoing environment. We have to have ongoing environmental and health monitoring, regular reassessment of chosen approach, and also flexibility to adapt based on new data or changing conditions. We have to involve also community in the decision making by stakeholder consultations, transparency, and incorporation of local knowledge and preferences. And that was all, because we didn't have too much time.
So now, group 5.
Okay, thank you. At least the phone. No.
Now we have agenda buffs.
Hello, everybody. I'm presenting with Otorak, my colleague, for group number 5. Okay. Our task was to develop a working plan for the situation given And for this situation, this requires a multifaceted approach involving detailed site assessments, stakeholder engagement, and careful consideration of remediation and decommissioning options, balancing environmental and health concerns with economic and social impacts, which are crucial for creating a sustainable and acceptable situation. So, based on the information we were given in the description of the exercise, we created our company, which called Sonata. The group name comes from the first letters of the group members' name. Our company was established in 1965, which is before 1974, when the before the ALARA principle was invented, before the radiation protection regulations had been created in the USA. These are the information that everybody had, and based on this we built our conceptual site model. And here you can see the exposure pathway schematic, where you can see there's liquid effluents that were discharged to a nearby lake, and the sludge is dumped into excavated pits, which has an influence on human health through intake of food. When there are fishes, and there are people swimming in the lake as well. So they have external exposure because of this situation. Okay, we made some assumption that the operation of the company will stop. So we have to deal with the long licensing procedure, which can take up to months. And throughout the whole process, the exposure and those limits have to be monitored, and we have to identify an end state, which can vary based on the level of contamination. Here we list the issues which we have to deal with. These are environmental, human health, related to social and economic, regulatory and compliance issues. Our environmental issues are the land degradation and habitat destruction, water contamination, air pollution, waste management, and of course natural radionuclides. We have to deal with them as well. Human health issues are related to radiation exposure, respiratory problems. It can cause respiratory problems, and you have to deal with non-radiological factors as well. Social and economic issues, we have community displacement. It can have impact on the economic dependency, and it can cause social conflicts. You also have to deal with the regulatory and compliance issues, which I mentioned before. The lack of enforcement is a huge issue, because when the company was established, they didn't have any regulatory enforcement, and you also have to take into consideration that rehabilitation and closure has a long licensing process. After this, we set our goals, our objectives for finding the best possible remediation method. We have to adjust environmental issues, deal with the health and radiation protection, gain public reception and acceptance, and deal with the regulatory and policy issues. These are detailed here. For environmental issues, you'd like to make an impact assessment. Water management plans and systems should be created. You have to deal with mine drainage prevention and monitoring and remediation. Also, health and radiation protection hold a huge exposure risks. You have to manage and mitigate the risks, and you also have to take into consideration the monitoring can be a long process. You need to gain public perception and acceptance. You need trust and transparency from the community, because building public trust through transparency in nuclear operations is really crucial. You have to involve the community as well, because they can provide you knowledge on the site you didn't have before. And regulatory and policy issues, again, which are really important because you need to ensure there's a strict adherence to national and international safety environmental regulations. And now I will give the floor to Otabek to explain you the remediation technologies.
Thank you. In line with above mentioned issue and established objectives, after the many consultation and advice from the international experts from Brazil, from Romanian, Italian, we have ranked the technologies by each indicator and selected the most appropriate remediation technologies in our opinion. Okay, considering all aspects of the environmental indicators, we have ranking the remediation technologies and selected most appropriate technology process from the containment with installation of engineering barriers to prevent the migration of harmful substances. By installing barriers, so we want to ensure that radionuclide and non-radiological factors do not spread over the largest area through area, soil, and water pathways. And economic indicators, once the sources are removed, and in the land and the buildings will become attractive for the investment in the industrial facilities, installation of renewable energy panels, agriculture, research centers, and other proposals. After land cleaning, the value of land and property in the vicinity is expected to increase. The risk of the damage will be reduced to corporate reputation of the area will be affected. Impact on the economic indicators of the settlements will be increasing. Creation of the jobs at the planet industrial facilities, increase in the employment rate, establish of the research center, and we have opportunities for education and training of the future generation, and social indicators. We considering that dust radionuclides will migrate into the river, impact on the biota and plants, on the surface. It is necessary to prevent the radionuclide from getting into the human body. Those preventing the growth of the illness in the local residents, particularly cancer cases. According to that, we choosing like best options is immobilization by cement based on the solidification and chemical immobilization. So, my colleagues, continue.
Thank you. So these were the aspects we chose. We tried to choose the best remediation technology, which actually didn't it. We chose 3 in all aspects. We wanted to highlight the community involvement, just again because it's really crucial mainly because you have to get the knowledge you didn't have before. So we just wanted to highlight this again. because a project can fall if you don't gain the acceptance of the community. When choosing an end state, you can have multiple choices, which are listed here. We chose two for our project. One of them is for using the state for renewable energy projects, such as a solar station, which can be environmental friendly, economical, profitable, and it can support the local community. For example, we find a project, the Valverde Solar Project, which was built on a former uranium site and is a notable example for repurposing contaminated or previously used land for renewable energy projects. And the second we chose is to reuse the site for a research facility. In this case, you can keep the building, the equipment, you can advance the knowledge. If you use the buildings for research that is in remediation, you can make innovations in this site, and it can be used for training and education. And an example for this is the Fondis Research Institute, which is used for environmental research, and it was established on a former uranium mining site. The institute is to conduct research related to environmental remediation, health impacts on radiation, and sustainable land use practices, particularly in areas affected by former mining operations. In conclusions, I'd like to say that you need optimization between the remediation methods. It's not crystal clear path that you can choose just only one. You have to take into consideration many environmental aspects, economical and social as well. You have to include stakeholders, you need community support, you have to take into consideration the sustainable development, mitigate environmental and health risk, and at the end it should lead to a safer and more sustainable outcome.
I do not agree this with my colleagues expert, but I, for something in my mind that I try to do. I'm sorry that I did not consult you. But I would like to imagine the leader of the group sitting here in the podium, so we're going to make a kind of
Why not the whole thing?
because there is no room. And you can consult your colleagues anytime. Well, in your case, you nominate one. What do you want? There is one missing. So what are we asking? And if you have any support from some of the group members to intervene, Dajcie sobie mikrofon. Don't need to be, but now forget about the 1, 2, 3. You just can go as you wish. If anybody wants to jump in.
So the time constraint was the biggest challenge. As we started yesterday, surely if we had, at least all of us had the same background in the topic we've discussed, we could start the process earlier, even on the first day. But anyway, time constraint was one of the first challenges. Then, which also affected on other aspects. For example, well done that you used Socrates. We tried to give it a shot, but honestly, we didn't make it on time. But we decided to do it after this training course, and surely we will, if the teams will be there, we will upload it again. But let me be a bit radical. Communication barriers is also another challenge, but the result shows that to some extent we made it very well to handle that. It was a bit challenging for the first few hours, but then we could disseminate the tasks and to accomplish some of the at least sections properly.
I have to agree with you. I was a little bit afraid of the language barriers, which we had a little bit, but if someone really wanted to take part in the group project, even though if we had some language barrier, if someone really wanted to have, they could.
I just want to add a little thing. Maybe it could be the lack of understanding of the same thing.
Yeah. Well, about that, our group was small. We were four. We were four people, including we three here in Armad. And we, since the beginning, we tried to divide the tasks, because so I was responsible for the last part, like the Socrates. I was working on that, and Giuseppe asked me in the cafeteria how long we take work, and I answered 4 hours, but 4 or 5 hours each one. So 4, 5 plus time is 4. So maybe 20 hours we have in this work. So that's why we achieved all the process, I believe. And in relation to the barriers of the communication barrier, I think it's hard, and it's kind of work we need to fast compromise each one. How can I say this? We had a lot of point of views. Yeah? In some cases, we have half of the group was thinking in one thing, and another half another, totally different. So we didn't have time. So fast we need to solve this. So well, okay, move on, and we achieve that. That's.
So the last, I think I agree with all of them, but in my opinion is the maybe in different understanding with the general conception of D and ER. We know that we are from the different background, decommissioning, meteorologists, maybe environmental, waste disposal, anything. Then we have to work in the same case, ER and D. So maybe not everyone really know what do we have to do, but yes, we all have the same reference from Mr. Horst, UCP, and Katrina, but yeah, maybe the understanding is not very well accepted one another. So yeah, that's the main change, I think.
Yes, of course.
So the differences, the language barrier, and also the different understanding of the matter, these are perfect demonstrations of stakeholder engagement. So imagine we are all experts, and with a similar, let's say, direction, kind of. Imagine working with real stakeholders, especially with communities, with sometimes absence, not lack, absence of tolerance. So this is what, if you haven't been engaged in any stakeholder and beneficiary, let's say, focus group meetings, you need to imagine what's going to happen in real world. So I guess this was a perfect demonstration of what we are going to face in real world.
So let me explore a little bit more on this. Language barrier, I know it's always a problem in IAEA courses. We need to deal with that. But you touch on a point that is very important, because you have different backgrounds, not only professional backgrounds, but you have also different cultural and even political backgrounds, and also different understanding about the solutions. So it is to be expected that among the groups you will see different ways in moving forward in addressing the exercise of the problem. So how did you manage to find consensus in the group to reach the final results that you presented to us?
Yeah. So the first interaction is critical. So considering past experiences with working with international groups, we usually do, let's say, try to, how can I say, just to look into or grab keywords, the body language. That's what I usually do. The impressions, the feedbacks, and then you understand what are the strong points of your colleagues and try to capitalize on those strong points. So in case I find that Anastasia has the technical background, which I do not have, and I have the, let's say, social assessment, environmental assessment background, we focus on that. If we realize that Mustafa has a very good knowledge of environmental management in nuclear power plants, we capitalize on that. We realize that Muhammad has other abilities like bringing ideas together and documenting it, etc., etc., and we receive lots of positive energy, and from our Armenian colleague Nazeli bringing us together, giving the vibe. So we try to capitalize on our strongest points, and I guess that was the best we could do in this limited time frame.
Well, what I can add about that, it's we need to fastly define like a leader in the group in this kind of project work, because this leader can sometimes to go forward in certain ways, make some decisions for the work to be done. In this case, we did this in our group. I was like the leader, yeah, and we tried to one person manage this, because maybe it's easier to do this kind of task considering this time, yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, in our group, we have first how we answer the challenge, the exercise. We have to create what kind of the strategy to finish this exercise, and yeah, everybody give contribution. Just who is bringing the general concept and then adding the details, bringing some idea there, so we can finish the exercise together. I think like that, how we finish this. Thank you.
Yes, Yes, you need a leader, but sometimes you might have two strong persons in one group, and I don't say we had two strong groups. Everybody was very strong, and given the time for this task to be finished, we divided basically into two at one point, and then were responsible for ranking the technologies, and we were responsible for the end state and working on other things. And at the end, we added this knowledge together, and I think it worked out perfectly, and we had a really good flow throughout the whole process.
I don't know what I should add, but yes, it's important to have a leader, but you should have the support of your group. It's very important to have the support and the same understanding of the problem. And also they should have the desire to do something. And I don't know, that's it.
You pointed a very important point, addressed a very important point, to have the same understanding of the problem. And what if we don't have the same understanding of the problem?
Yes, it's very hard. That's why we could not finish our exercise.
That's where the leader comes to, yeah.
So we spent a little time, not a little, but time reading the exercise and putting all together in the same page. So with some points not defined yet, but after that we could move on, because if we didn't this like this way, in so many points of this process, we will have again to discuss and say, oh, my opinion is that, my opinion is not that, and change everything.
So let me ask my final question, and ask Catherine, is that when I ask all my needs apologies for them, because this was not anticipated, but I would like to know why I had this idea. What is the difference in your opinions between a leader and a manager? So,
The leader takes actions and takes the group, the team with them, show how to handle things, and there is this proactive interaction between all participants. He or she does not dictate what to do, but he or she takes the first action, and then also demonstrates and gives a vision of how things are gonna be done and what's the end point and the state. A manager usually, classically, sits and says, you need to do this, there's this timeline, these are the tasks, and most of the time the interactions are not very well mannered and handled. So I believe some of the differences are this.
yes, it's open to anybody.
Regarding the main differences between leader and manager, I can make it a generic statement. A leader is working on the system, but the manager is working in the system. Just manager manage daily work, daily operations, ensure that all roles and responsibilities are distributed, all works are done, all objectives are achieved. On the other hand, the leader would be inspiring, preparing another line of leaders under him, acknowledge the work, ensure everything is going in the same direction, in the vision of the company, but the manager working on the working level, ensure all objectives are achieved, all planned activities are realized, and so on. This is the main difference between leader and manager, according to the management system.
Just one thing I want to add, and I pass you the microphone, the responsibility. The leader always has to, a good leader always has to take the responsibility.
In my opinion, the leader is going the team to success. The definition of the leader is going the team, bring the team to the success way. And clarify what's the everyone in the team how could work. He explained what can we do. So the leader is different about manager. The leader going the team to the success.
Okay. So it was a surprise, but it was you had a good idea. Now, first of all, I want to say that I have been really very positively impressed by the work you have done, because in a very few time you clearly showed that you understood the basic concept, you really could develop many ideas. So really congratulations to everybody. Then it's clear that some groups did a bit more, other less. There may be many reasons for that. That's not the issue. It's not the details, but the overall picture, how you work it. And my first point is discuss on this issue, manager, leader, barriers. You were talking there were language barriers, but languages might mean many things, just because you speak a different languages, but also because we have different backgrounds. My experience with interdisciplinary team is that there is a tendency that everybody that has a different understanding of the concept because of his own background, but even the way the concepts are defined are different. So it's not only an issue of speaking a different language, it's really having a different background that leads you to, even if the language is the same, to define concepts in different ways and having an issue. And this also may create the problem of having a sharing vision. Now, some of you said, okay, we didn't have the same vision of the problem, and that was difficult to continue. And in your opinion, how much this is due to the fact that maybe the group there were different backgrounds, or simply was because you had different ideas? And also the way you organize the work. There is a difference between interdisciplinarity, transdisciplinarity, you know, this issue about working in team are defined in many ways. But basically, there are two different possibilities. You work together all the time, interacting and trying to arrive to something completely shared, or, and I think some of the groups did this, that probably is more transdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinarity may also mean that you start building a shared model, then everybody does a piece of work according to the competence they have. In your experience, which of the two proved to be more effective if you try it?
Just to about our group, we try not to do that, to divide the work with the expertise of each person. We try to, in the beginning, do all the steps, but brief talks. And so, like, oh, this part is from one person. Oh, maybe it's good to put here some of these things. And we just wrote like points. After that, oh, this part is and after after doing this, we already may try to, oh, this person talk a little good things about these questions. So maybe you can do this part complete. But complete and putting new insights, but already talk to all the other participants from the group, and we move on this like until the end of the problem. So we did this way.
maybe you can use another concept for this, because I feel like our main point for the presentation was to make the ranking, and then we worked our way around it to do the core, and then do the other things which are so important as well. But I think we had to establish the main point and then do the other work as well together.
I just wanted to say that for me, I think in a group work or teamwork or in a team, each of them at least should try to do something maybe, or I don't know, to say something. For me, this is very important to move on and to have next steps.
So, considering again the time frame, quick wins are important. So, although all members had their contribution to the task, but at first we were divided in two groups. We built very important and critical elements of the exercise independently, and then we again sit together with the group and reviewed and revisited. Then the presentation was available for everyone, and we had an internal group on social media so that we can exchange ideas, and everyone was welcome to edit the presentation, but by informing the others what is gonna be there. So that's how we did it. Everyone had its contribution, but for sure some of us had more narrow, let's say, area of interest and competence.
Yeah, so in the teamwork is, I think, we have to solve the main problem. We have to answer it first, and then adding some details and adding the concept. That how we manage to finish the exercise. But we really focus on how we solve this, and then later we can add some information. Okay, I think like that in my team.
Well, first I wanted to appreciate the comparison with stakeholder involvement, because indeed I think that you have experienced it firsthand, having different knowledges, backgrounds, understandings of the concepts, and I think you have also seen that, well, in an involvement process it's important to set up the rules, like how are we going to do this? How are we going to do it if, for instance, we come to disagreements? Okay, you had this time constraint, so a decision had to be taken. So I appreciate that you have managed to work through. And also, I think that you have seen that actually a leader can't be a facilitator at the same time. You need a skilled facilitators in many involvement processes to be sure that everyone is saying something at the right time, who tries to summarize the process. Well, in some cases, in some groups, I think this worked. In other groups, perhaps there was too much, let's say, weight on the shoulders of the leaders, so they couldn't also be facilitator. And I liked, for instance, in Group 3, how you thought about different methods to keep in contact with social media, etc. And I liked Tiago saying, okay, summarizing, going one step further, being sure that somehow everyone is on the same page. You don't have to be discouraged if it didn't work perfectly. I think that also happens, that you have a first meeting, it gets in all directions, but then people have time to think about it. You have the second meeting with, for instance, with stakeholders, and then you can try to structure it a little bit better. But again, the rules and roles are important to that they are agreed among everyone, so that you don't need to spend time every time trying to figure it out on the go. I have a question about, I think that many of you did really well in thinking about stakeholders, trying to map them. Some of you have thought about including them from an early stage. For some of you, you put more focus on communication of decisions. So I have a question related to stakeholder engagement. So the first step would be site characterization. Yeah, you have some of you have made stunning visuals I'm really very impressed. Your conceptual site models were really good. So to what extent do you see this as a purely technical work, you know, thinking about the pathway, the conceptual site models? Can you think of a potential contribution, for instance, from local communities in this? Do they have some knowledge that might help improve these conceptual site models?
Surely the local communities, specifically local communities, have a lot to, let's say, give to process. But you need to also very well understand the minor, small stuff that might be also a risk, because, for example, in Armenia, especially when we are going on a hiking or expedition for any reason, and you engage the local community, you might ask for example, a lake, and then they might come up with another word, another description, because they go there for past 60 or 50 years, and they might describe it somehow that it might mislead you. But when you go there, you identify something else, or vice versa. There might be 1,000 other elements that you haven't even considered, like about flora and fauna, birds, etc., that you haven't had anything in mind. But then you have this interaction with the stakeholders, and they give you very valuable things. Or about cultural heritage that it is not documented. We have such cases in Armenia, and it's dozens of them for a site. For example, in a mining site in North Armenia, by such interaction, we identified very, very old ancient site, and it was turned into, let's say, touristic area sometime later, but we didn't see it in our initial project mapping, etc., etc. So this is only about local community, but if we engage other stakeholders, like NGOs, sometimes we are afraid of them, especially the environmental, social, etc. So in NGOs, we are afraid to interact with them, but surely you can, let's say, get some very valuable inputs and capitalize on that.
Yes, it is important to involve community and stakeholders as well, but you have to make a borderline until what point will you let them in to see in the project, because I have an example, maybe it's Sventendorf, you remember that they let people decide if they want to operate the nuclear power plant, and the decision was they didn't want to operate, and there's a perfectly good new power plant which was never turned on and it never operated because community decided. So you have to be careful with the involvement as well.
About the local community, and this is my personal point of view. Local community usually do not really have knowledge about what is the problem with them, with the environment or anything. But usually they really care about the economical value. So yeah, we also need to consider the local community, because it's really affected them, the situation. And maybe we cannot ask a question about what really the problem, but we can observe how they interact with the problem. It is about it is making some benefit or not, but it is for observation, not really what knowledge or something like that. I think. Do you understand?
in addition to involving the stakeholders in the initial planning process, it is also very important and crucial to interact with them during the implementation and operation. Another example again about copper and molybdenum mine in Armenia. So the community, not the whole Armenia nation-wise, they were against that project, and we faced very, very huge problems until the project was realized. And from some point forward, we also started realizing and documenting the environmental benefits that the project had, and started communicating them, such as for a long, long time, we haven't had faced some very valuable and important animals in that region. For example, bears, different deers, and different type of let's say animals which are included in our Red Book. So we started documenting them, making pictures, then we installed these action cameras, etc., etc. And then, so why this happened? Because until the operation of the mine, people, the local community used to hunt. So the environment, for sure, with our process, with our mining operations, the environment was distracted, but we also made it to revive another part which was initially in business as usual already distracted. So we need to give the feedback also during the operation. I think it's very important.
I really appreciate your perspectives. Before we finish this interaction, anybody from the audience would like to add something or ask something to the group? No? No. You have some?
Just a small question. If you felt there was some expertise missing in the group that you needed in order to solve the problem, let's say, more effectively?
AI. I guess. Good. So let's give a round of applause to our group leaders. Thank you. So I'll take the lead here just to make some comments, because there were some there are just some comments that's really specifically from the technical point of view that I need to make sure that they are observed. I think that the idea of the conceptual site model was well absorbed by the groups, and you were able to demonstrate these representations of the conceptual site model in different ways, but you got a picture. But one thing that was missing in all groups was the site characterization. Because site characterization and conceptual site model are two things that walk hand in hand but are not the same. You need to take the samples from different media. Well, I was taking note, I didn't see too much emphasis on this. And afterwards, the site characterization should be done before, during, and after to follow up I remember that I said that regarding site characterization, it's a dynamic process, because eventually with the new information, you can redirect the work and refine some things. And another point that I missed was reference to groundwater. The remediation was very much focused on containment. I guess that all the groups came to the conclusion that containment was the way to go. But I haven't seen anybody talking about potential remediation of groundwater, because if the groundwater is contaminated and if there is a complaint that cases of cancer have been observed in the community, the pathway that would lead the contaminants to these people would be the groundwater. And there was little emphasis on the groundwater, a lot of emphasis on the wastes that were buried, but not too much emphasis on ground. And that would be a key point to address, because that is the pathway that would be likely to get people to be contaminated. And also, I haven't seen any consideration to efforts to discuss the cases of, allegedly cases of cancer in the community, right? Another point that for me was critical was the different views in the groups, whether this is a planned exposure situation or if this is an existing exposure situation. And I would say that this is a typical situation in which the facility operated without proper licensing, and this characteristically is a existing exposure situation, not a plan. It's an existing exposure situation because you will need to make interventions in the environment to reduce potential doses. But the first thing to have pretty clear is to supporting, with the support of the conceptual site model, have a proper characterization of the situation in terms of potential contamination in different media. If you put this well, the water are being abstracted, that water has to be characterized, because this is what might be bringing exposure to people. If that is the case, it's a very solid evidence that the problem needs to be addressed, right? And I kind of miss a bit of emphasis on this thing. Yeah, I would say that you got it right, that it's a multidisciplinary problem, and Catherine just asked what kind of expertise might be lacking. And but the other point that I did not understand, and maybe the groups can take a go on this, is that you talk about importance of stakeholder engagement, but I heard many times you telling we decide or we chose two options, right? So the group chose the options, and then you would consult, or how that would work. For me, it was not pretty much clear, right? I was a bit confused. And the other thing is about reuse of the site. Well, their site is being used. So the first thing that we need to be understood is the site going to be in operation? Some of the groups addressed that, but other groups give a message that for me was not, I didn't want to interrupt. But you have a plant that is in operation. The plant is not operating according to the best practices, according to the international standard. Decision is, for the industry to operate, would be the case that it would be, well, in my country we have a kind of commitment agreement, commit to agree with best practices and to adjust its operations to the new standards, or if that adjustment is very expensive or would not make it possible, then the plant would definitely be decommissioned and the site remediated, and then you need to define what is the liability of the company in terms of paying for the problems they have potentially caused. So this is the mechanics that has to be in place. So if the commissioning of the plant, of the facility, is the way to go, then you need to decide, and this is the consultation process, what would be the future use of the site, not the end state. Because you may have different end states, but the end state will be related to the future use of the site. So if it is a recreational area, so these are the end states that you will consider. If it is another industrial area, you mentioned about photovoltaic farm. If that is a solution to go, what are the conditions that the site would need to have to accommodate that particular use, right? So the conversation we need to have is about the future use of the land. In the case, it has to be decommissioned. But you can do both. You can have the industry operating and the remediation taking place at the same time. The question is the funding for this, because it has to be negotiated depending on the costs associated. The industry might not be able to shoulder all the costs. So this is a mechanism, a strategy that has to be put in place. One of the catches of the exercise, and that was shown in the film, is that, and now I'm talking about it because I did not want to talk it before, and if you go to the cities you will see, is that people that had health diseases, they start suing the company. And then there is a kind of take in the series that shows this park is supported by industry, this school was built by industry, this library, so the industry had a lot of actions in the city. And the population of the city turned out against those who were complaining against the company, because they were the ones who were benefiting from the activities of the company, and they were kind of scared, afraid that if the company would go away because of the how can I say, the penalties, they would eventually lose their jobs, they would eventually lose all these activities that were funded by the industry. So there was a conflict between the residents, the workers, and those in the nearby communities that were exposed, potentially exposed by the releases of the company. So all these are part of this very complex situation that we need to think about. And finally, to demonstrate that the events of health diseases are related to the releases that were attributed to the company. So you can characterize the connection between source and receptor. This is one thing. But then to prove that the effects were caused by this connection, that's another step. Because the graphic that I showed, we are not talking about deterministic effects, we are talking about probabilistic effect, stochastic effects. So you need to demonstrate, and there are mechanisms that you can use, that the effects people are complaining about are definitely associated to that. But it's not uncommon that effects, health effects, that have nothing to do with radiation will also be attributed to radiation. And this is tricky. There is a book about Chernobyl where the writer proposes that different sorts of diseases were increased because of radiation. And that's very complicated, because we know that some health effects will not be typically associated to radiation, but still, right? And there is another problem, and that happened in Japan about the release of iodine-131, where massive investigation of thyroid diseases were done, and then it has been suggested that there was an increase in thyroid cancer because of the releases of iodine. And the point is, was it the case that there was this increase in thyroid issues, or the massive diagnostic led to the discovery of things that eventually would not be observed because you will not use the screening, you will not be using techniques that are much more refined than in the past. So I want to add those elements because it's a very complex situation. It can be very tricky to deal with that. In another film that I watched, and I really am very obsessed with this kind of things because they are based on real story. It's one with John Travolta, by the way, as Legal Action, the title. And the same thing, buried waste, cases of different diseases and connection between both. And then it goes to the jury. And the company hired very good hydrogeologists, very well-known specialists, and the lawyer that was advocating for the victims, inverted comma, did the same. So a very strong debate between the scientists were taking place. And then the camera just moved to the jury, and they were just like understanding nothing and still having to make a decision. But the main point here was that experts have different points of view, and all of them were very respected experts in the areas that they were working. So this is also, there is no such a thing of absolute truth. This is the person that will tell, and everybody will respect. There will be disagreement. I live this. This is what I, this is used to be my day-by-day life. You have different experts with different opinions about different things. And that was my discussion with Giuseppe about the absolute truth of science. There is no such a thing, because sometimes we will not be able to prove. So this is some of my considerations. But important thing is that, number one, you were able to do an amazing work. I was not expecting, I swear to you. I was not expecting that I would see this with a degree of elaboration of the presentations. All the concepts that we talked about, I was taking the mark. All the concepts were dealt with in the presentations, which for me was really surprising. I'm not sure if it is the competence of the instructors or the overcompetence of the participants. Giuseppe said this was a joint work, but I would say that it worked because you are living here with the concepts in your mind. But let me be honest about this. You got the flavor, but in the real work, you need to go deep in all these things to refine your understanding about all these things. You know what is in there now. You know, all the presentations are in the Teams, the exercises are there. Now you know a great deal of information, but it's not enough. It's really not enough. You need to put this in practice. And this exercise because you may wish to apply for positions in international organizations. It's a legitimate thing to do. You may develop your careers for those who pursuing this, and more, the so-called soft skills are being very relevant in the selection process. The way you can express yourself in an interview, for example. And generally, this will be taking place, and you will feel yourself under pressure. right? Because we'll have 1 hour, you will have to answer different questions, and sometimes things are not really clear. So I think as much as you have opportunities to express yourselves, organize your thoughts without knowing what is coming, because there are some interviews that are nice. We get the answers, the questions beforehand, we think about them, and then when we go to the interview, we know what we are talking about. But there are situations in which you will not know. So this exercise also gives the opportunity for you to articulate your thoughts, putting together technical information, but in a way that everybody can understand. But all in all, this was a very good week, in my opinion. I will give the microphone to my colleague Giuseppe and Catrinel. I'm very happy with the outcome. Unfortunately, today we had this very sad news about our colleague. We will have the opportunity to be with him and give our support to him. But I have to say that the week was very fruitful in this way, and that you did a really, really great job, and I'm very surprised how much work you could put together in a very short period of time. Giuseppe, you want to add something?
Okay, thank you, Horst. Well, just to reiterate that really congratulations, you did amazing work, really very good. I was like Horst, very positively surprised of the amount of work and the deep understanding of the main concept that we were dealing with this week. So, as I said to Horst, this is there is a big we here. I think we did all the possible efforts to transmit the main messages, but you were fantastic. So really, congratulations to all of you, and all my best wishes for the continuations of your work. I just have a suggestion. Some of you say that you would like to continue the group work, and I think it's a very good idea also, because one of the, I think I did this as participant in the past, and what is really good is to keep the friendship you create in this event a long time along your career. So I think it would be very nice if you can continue the group work in the coming weeks, and maybe also just to give you a joint objective, you could try to publish some of this work in a journal. So I think it would be very good, because you have the understanding of the basic concept, you have a kind of illustrative example. If you develop it well and you work more on it, I think you have all the ingredients to do it. You may also try to publish a journal article, so you have also a product. So really, thank you very, very much for being so fantastic public.
This suggestion was excellent, but also the other one to keep contact. We had a course in US, was last year, Alexandra, and we formed a group, and we are still interacting, and we posted the pictures of us in this one, and if you may wish to share your WhatsApp, Alexandra can create a group, and we can be in touch. And Anastasia is also in that group, right? So it's very useful, because we inform each other. I inform you, because I put a lot of information in LinkedIn, more than I should sometimes. I put a lot of information in LinkedIn, I put information in the web space of the environment, but sometimes a direct information to people will alert you about upcoming events that you may be interested. So that's an idea, following Giuseppe's. Catrinel.
Thank you. I started with a quite detailed assessment, but I want to say that I appreciated a lot your work. One key element in stakeholder involvement is to be open and to learn also from the others. So I think I learned from you, just as hopefully you learned from the instructors in this course. In one of my presentations, I was talking about community assets. So I appreciated that in some groups I observed how you considered how community can be an asset. For instance, by involving them in post-remediation monitoring, or by using them to carry out the implementation works. So I invite you to also think about all stakeholders, even the more problematic ones, as an opportunity or as an asset. For instance, non-governmental environmental groups can serve, for instance, to help disseminate data, environmental impact assessment data, or even communicate with the public, you know. So we can turn many of the challenges in opportunities. I have appreciated that some of you considered also the social context before starting with the technical characterization of the work. For instance, in one group, there was a reflection on the political or possibly economic pressure on keeping the facility working while maybe the way of working was not the best. I was impressed with the stakeholder mappings you did, either with mind maps or power interest charts, or just really rich descriptions of the possible stakeholders. It is good to remember, so always one of the things that there are no really homogeneous groups. Even in the community, you can think about people working for the industry. They will probably have a different, let's say, understanding and appreciation of the industry there than people who are not working for the industry. It could be, for instance, healthcare workers. In the description of the case study, it was mentioned that some people have health concerns. They are ill and they think it could be because of the industry. So it's also good perhaps to engage with healthcare workers. There was some deep reflection on the involvement in decision making of different stakeholders. I invite you to also consider the impact. So thinking about, okay, we consult with stakeholders, what is going to be the impact of this consultation on the final decision making? And this for any kind of action where involvement is foreseen. I liked in one presentation the idea of a multi-stakeholder management team. This could be very good in a project to have an oversight with different stakeholder representatives. Some of you have thought quite in detail about the social impact of remediation options. So I found this really very good. And also about the further socioeconomic development, because indeed it's not only about trying to mitigate the risks, but also seeing the problem in the broader context of sustainability. So I heard some really interesting ideas, for instance, research centers, or photovoltaic energy, etc. So I found it good that you have thought about it in this way. I heard about return of experience. In one presentation, an example was given about some other case where I think it was a research center that was developed and it was proposed to do it the same here. I'm sorry, I don't understand my writing now. And one point still I wanted to mention. So it seemed to me from the description of the case study that there was a kind of situation of distrust that this project is starting in, because, let's say, the practices of the industry were not excellent. It was discovered that there is waste that has not been properly dealt with. So in such a situation, really one good action is to disclose environmental data, make it available for everyone. Engaging with, for instance, trusted community leaders for communicating about this data. And also maybe one type of involvement that is now more and more looked at is citizen science. So this is a process by which citizens themselves are involved in the collection and possibly analysis of data. And this can be a powerful way to engage people and restore trust, because people have their own independent ways of understanding what is happening in their environment, and they also gain knowledge through this process. So actually people are really smart, that's my personal opinion, so they learn a lot through the process, even if in the beginning it's not clear what is radioactivity, all that. But seeing people who have participated in such processes, you see that they have actually become quite experts in the field. So with this, yes, I want to express my appreciation for your work. I hope that the course was useful. I was very pleasantly impressed by your attention to social aspects, and ethical aspects are also important. We should not forget about them. And good luck in your future work.
So with this, we're coming to the close of our week. Just want to before giving the floor to Eileen, to say a big thank you for our hosts. A country I have never visited before, and I'm so very sad that it took me 17 years in the agency to come to Armenia, to know Yerevan. I'm really sure that I lost a lot, because this is a really fantastic city. We had a very great time. I say this with a heavy heart because of what happened this morning, but still I have to say that. I want to thank the colleagues in the back that were supporting us during this whole week with the audiovisual. It's a very, very important work, because we need the sound, we need the computer. So my friend in the back, merci, thank you very much. And also for Alpine and her team that managed to do all the administrative work that is necessary. And also my people back, they cannot hear me, they not listen to me, but my people back in Vienna that work hard to make all these flights. And I know that some people were really heavy penalized going to different stops, especially from Argentina, that went to go to Panama and then to Paris and then, but yeah, sometimes it happens. We are flying tonight at 4:45, but still. And I was very happy that Nazali and Armine joined us in the dinner. It was very nice to have you. And also the other colleagues from Armenia was able to join in the exercise. I think that you brought very important input, and I think that you enjoyed the work we have done together. So thank you, thanks a lot. And for the future, we have an initiative called Binder, the Master in Science and Decommissioning. And I believe that the American University in Armenia can be a very good partner, not more how can I say, a member of the consortium itself, because the process is far well developed, but can be a very important hub to spread these concepts on sustainability in the region. As many more partners we have, more we can do, the outreach is better. And I will take the best memories from this week, which was not only good in terms of the work we've done, and the proof of the work we've done was the exercise you presented. And I say this from the heart. I don't lie, almost not, never. Sometimes I do, especially to my wife, but she doesn't need to know about that. But yeah, I say that I will play snooker with my friend, but I will go to the bar to drink a little bit. Anyhow, with that said, I think we did not only a good job in technical terms, but also we had an opportunity to have a good time together and develop this interaction. And please keep this friendship. It's so beautiful to see people from different parts of the world getting together. The barriers that people tend to impose on us, let us not accept them. We are better than that, right? Thank you very much, Alan. And we have the certificates, right?
The certificates are going to be, we've been told from
will be sent online. They will be online.
They'll be delivered.
Oh, I put on nice clothes to handle them. Okay. Yeah.
So Vienna interferes. We're going to give you paper copies, but Vienna said electronic. Okay, everyone. It's been a pleasure to host all of you here in our university, and I'm glad you were able to visit Yerevan, which is not the first place you think about when you think of traveling. But I hope you enjoyed your time. I hope that the city and the university was able to give you the basic amenities that would make your stay and your training successful. I very much look forward to continued cooperation with the agency on a number of different educational training opportunities, and also we would be more than happy to become a hub for educational training activities in the region on nuclear issues. As the director of the Acopian Center, this is really the first initiative we've had on nuclear-related issues. So it is a very important topic from an environmental perspective and of course social and sustainability perspective. So we hope to continue to be connected to that world. And of course the Erasmus Mundus project and others, we will be very happy because Armenia is a nuclear country. So, but this social and the environmental and sustainability aspects are often not discussed and often not delved into deeply. And I hope that with our degree programs and our master's students and eventually, who knows, PhD students, if the university develops in that direction, we'll be able to build sufficient capacity not only for Armenia but also internationally, because from what we've heard, there's probably more demand in the world than there's capacity to meet that demand. So I think there is a lot of work to do. And thanks all of you for coming all this way, some of you from South America, some of you from all over the world coming here. And I hope you'll find your way back here sometime and come visit. Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.